I'm Alice. I'm 31, and I'm a data analyst. My entire life has been built on being responsible, on prudence, on saving every dollar I could while my family didn't. Last night, my parents called a family meeting. I walked into their dining room, and they slid a single document across the polished wood table. It wasn't a photo. It wasn't a letter. It was a quitclaim deed. My mother, Brenda, didn't even look at me. She just pointed at the paper. "You have to sign this," she said. "He's your brother." They wanted me to sign away my future, my $200,000 inheritance from my grandparents, all of it, just to pay off my brother Leo's $70,000 gambling debt. My blood ran cold. The air in the room felt thick, my jaw locked. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. I finally said the words I'd held back my entire life. "What you are asking me to do is insane." The screaming started instantly, but I didn't stay to listen. I grabbed my keys and I walked out. Have you ever been the only responsible person in a family that demands you set yourself on fire to keep them warm? This is the story of how I finally chose to let them burn. Subscribe to find out how I fought back. That night in my car, fleeing my parents' house, my mind didn't just replay the fight, it replayed my entire life. Because that moment, that quitclaim deed on the table, it wasn't new. It was just the final, logical conclusion to a story that started decades ago. In my family, the roles were set in stone before I could even talk. My brother, Leo, was the heart. I was the brain. That sounds nice, doesn't it? It's not. What it meant was that Leo was allowed to feel. He was charming, he was spontaneous, he was passionate. He got the smiles, the hugs, the grace. My job was to be sensible. I was the planner, the straight-A student, the responsible one. I didn't get grace. I got expectations. I got the bills. I remember when I was 16. I won the state math prize. I stood in a hot, fluorescent-lit gymnasium, and they put a cheap medal around my neck. I came home, holding it. My dad, Richard, glanced up from the TV. "That's nice, dear." My mom, Brenda, just said, "Did you take out the trash?" That was it. The very next week, Leo, who was 18, got a speeding ticket, a serious one, 90 in a 55. The house went into DEFCON 1. My parents didn't yell at him, they went into problem-solving mode. Frantic phone calls, a long weekend of hushed, serious discussions. They spent all Saturday helping him sort it out. They paid the fine, they paid for the defensive driving class. And then I will never forget this, they bought him a top-of-the-line radar detector. Not to teach him a lesson, to teach him how to get away with it better next time. When I got my first real job 10 years ago, the help started. It was small at first, it always is. It was my mom calling. "Alice, honey, Leo's phone bill is late, can you just cover it? He's in a tight spot." A tight spot. He was always in a tight spot. So I'd pay it. Then it was his car insurance. He needs the car for his job interviews, Alice. Then it was his rent, just this once. I was the family ATM, the emergency fund. They weren't testing the boundary. They were grooming me to not have one. 3 years ago, it escalated. Leo had a brilliant idea for a business. My parents poured thousands into it. They never asked me, the data analyst, to look at his plan. They just expected me to be the cheerleader. It failed, of course. It failed spectacularly within a single year. He was left with his first pile of significant debt. And all of it, was happening while I was meticulously saving. While I was packing my own lunch, driving a 10-year-old car, and scraping together a down payment for my own apartment. 2 years ago, they hit the big one. They sat me down. They wanted me to co-sign a massive loan for him, a fresh start. I refused. The fight was nuclear, my mother cried. My father yelled. They told me I was selfish. They said, "You'd let him be ruined over a simple signature?" It wasn't a simple signature. It was a legal and financial chain. I was the only one who saw the iceberg, and they were furious at me for not tying myself to the bow of the ship. I held firm. And that refusal, they never forgave me for it. It was the first time I had truly drawn a line they couldn't cross. I see that now. The quitclaim deed wasn't a new request. It was their revenge for the loan I refused to sign. 6 months ago, the foundation of my life cracked. My maternal grandparents passed away within weeks of each other. It was a devastating 1 to 2 punch of grief. My grandmother, she was the only one who ever asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. My grandfather taught me how to change a tire, how to read a balance sheet. He'd wink and say, "The numbers don't lie, Alice. People do." They were my anchors. And suddenly, they were gone. Their house. That was my only true safe space. It wasn't like my parents' house, which always felt like a courtroom where I was permanently on trial. My grandparents' house was quiet. It smelled like cedar from the big chest in the hallway, old books, and my grandmother's lemon furniture polish. I would go there just to sit in my grandfather's worn, plaid armchair by the window. The springs groaned when I sat down, but it was a comfortable sound. I'd watch the dust motes dance in the sunbeams. In that chair, I wasn't the brain. I wasn't the responsible one. I was just Alice. I was safe. When the will was read a few weeks later, I went purely out of obligation. I expected nothing. I assumed, like everything else, it would be routed to my parents for the family, which was just code for Leo. The lawyer read the document in a dry monotone. And then he said it. The primary residence is to be left in equal shares, 50% to my grandson, Leo, and 50% to my granddaughter, Alice. I stopped breathing. I looked over at my parents. My mother's face was white. My father was staring at the lawyer as if he'd just spoken in another language. Leo just looked confused, like he was trying to do the math. 50%. For the first time in my entire life, I felt seen. It wasn't just the money. It was the validation. My grandparents had seen everything. They saw how I was treated. They saw how I was used as the family's human shield and piggy bank. And in their final act on this earth, they reached past my parents, past the toxic dynamic they'd built, and they put a shield in my hand. That $200,000 share wasn't just a number. It was security. It was my future. It was a down payment on a life that my parents and my brother could not touch. It was my grandparents looking me in the eye and saying, "You deserve this. This is yours. Don't let them take it." My heart ached with gratitude. It was a deep, painful, beautiful moment. It was real. 1 month ago, probate officially closed. The title was transferred. The house was now legally, officially, ours. Tenants in common. That was the legal term. A fact, written in ink, filed with the county. My name was on the deed. And my parents. They had 1 month to figure out how to get it off. I had my inheritance. I had this one, single thing that was mine. But while I was working my 9 to 5, analyzing spreadsheets, and transferring a careful, budgeted amount into my high-yield savings account every single month, Leo was being Leo. My savings account was growing. His debt was exploding. While I was saving, he was posting pictures on social media from expensive restaurants I'd never let myself go to, photos of a weekend trip to a ski resort, a shiny new car leased, I found out later, at a criminal interest rate. He was living the life I was supposedly working toward, but he was doing it all on credit, on air. The passive-aggressive jokes got worse. He'd see me at a family dinner, and I'd be wearing a nice, simple blouse I'd bought on sale. He'd smirk and say, "Wow, Alice, look at you. Must be nice getting that big salary." My big salary, the salary I earned working 60-hour weeks, the salary that, apparently, I was hoarding. He'd make these little digs, and my parents would just let him. They'd even join in. "Oh, Alice," my mother would say, "you're so good with savings. You should teach your brother." Teach him? I was teaching him. I was teaching him that no matter how reckless he was, I, or my parents, would be there to catch him. It was a sick, twisted dynamic. Every time we'd go out for a family meal, the check would come, and Leo's hands would suddenly be busy. He'd be checking his phone. He'd be forgetting his wallet in the car, every single time, and my parents would just look at me, expectantly. "Alice, can you get this? We'll pay you back." They never paid me back. My parents enabled all of it. They were his chief apologists. When his business failed 3 years ago, taking their money with it, do you know what my father said? He said, "Well, at least he has a good heart." He tried. A good heart. When I got my last promotion, the one that finally pushed me into a senior analyst role, I told them, My mother's only response was, "Oh, that sounds stressful, dear." He tried and failed, and he had a good heart. I succeeded, and I was stressed. That was the narrative. He was the lovable failure. I was the cold, unfeeling success. And it was my job to fund his good heart. Then, last week, the real truth bomb finally dropped. I got a frantic call from my mother. Leo had finally confessed. He hadn't just been leasing cars or going on vacations. He had a gambling problem, a massive one. He had personal loans. He had sharks circling. He was $70,000 in the hole. I felt sick, but a cold, analytical part of my brain kicked in. The part that had been screaming for years. "I told you so." I didn't say it, of course. But then my mother delivered the final line. "And Alice, his creditors. They're threatening to put a lien on his share of the house." A lien, a legal claim, on his half of my inheritance. His financial disaster, the one I had warned them about for a decade, was no longer just his problem. It was now legally attached to my asset, my safety, my one protected thing. If he defaulted, they could force a sale. My grandparents' home, my $200,000, it could all be vaporized to pay for his bets. And that's when it all clicked. That's when my parents, Richard and Brenda, stopped being passive enablers and became active predators. That's when they went to their lawyer, not to help Leo, but to figure out how to steal from me. That's when they procured the quitclaim deed. They didn't stage that family meeting to ask me to help him. They staged it to order me to replace him, to take the $70,000 loss and, while I was at it, hand over my entire $200,000 future just to make their problem go away. They weren't trying to save Leo. They were trying to sacrifice me. I barely made it to my car. I don't even remember saying goodbye. I just remember the sound of my mother's voice screaming, "You ungrateful," before I slammed the front door. I stumbled into the driver's seat, my breath catching in my throat. I jammed the lock button. The thud of the mechanism engaging was the first safe sound I'd heard all night. My hands were shaking. Not just a little tremble. They were vibrating, completely out of my control. I tried to put the key in the ignition, and I couldn't. I just kept missing, my hand scraping the key uselessly against the plastic column. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, just trying to breathe. And then, on the passenger seat, my phone lit up. It wasn't a single buzz. It was a relentless, angry assault. Psst, 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 psst. It skittered across the fabric, the screen glowing in the dark. A barrage. I picked it up. My thumb felt numb, too big for the screen. The first text was from my mother, Brenda. "If you don't sign this, you are not welcome in this house again. He is your brother." Heat crawled up my spine. It felt like acid. Not welcome. My whole life, I had done everything right. I had been the perfect, responsible, invisible daughter. And in 30 seconds, my membership in this family was revoked. My price was $200,000. It wasn't love. It was just a very, very expensive transaction, and I had just defaulted. Buzzed. Before I could even process the first one, another came through. My father, Richard, the peacemaker. "We are a family. We help each other. Your brother just needs a fresh start, and you're stopping him." Day as Kim. Stopping him? Was he insane? I was stopping him? I was the one who had been plugging the holes in his sinking ship for a decade. My money, my time, my emotional energy. I wasn't stopping him. I was just refusing to be his ballast anymore. They weren't helping him. They were just finding a new, bigger sacrifice to throw on his bonfire, and this time, it was me. Buzzed. My mother again. This was the one. The line she had been honing my entire life. "You're tearing this family apart by being selfish." Selfish. There it was. The word that had been her primary weapon for 31 years. It was selfish to focus on my homework when Leo needed cheering up. It was selfish to save for my own apartment when he needed money for his business. It was selfish to get a promotion because it made him feel bad about himself. And now, it was selfish to keep the inheritance that my grandparents specifically left to me. I saw it with perfect, terrible clarity. The family wasn't a group of 4 people who loved each other. It was a group of 3, with one full-time, unpaid employee. And that employee was trying to quit. Rage, cold and clean, finally cut through the panic. My thumbs flew across the screen, typing a reply to my mother. I am not paying his gambling debts. It was true. It was simple. It was the boundary I should have set 10 years ago. My thumb hovered over the send button. I could just press it, end this. But I couldn't. I saw the next 10 steps. The screaming would get worse. They would call, endlessly. They would show up at my apartment. They would weaponize Christmas. They would poison every single memory I had, all to make me break. The fight in that dining room had taken everything I had. I was empty. I couldn't fight them tonight, but I could escape. With a shaking finger, I deleted the text. I held down the power button on the side of my phone. The screen lit up. Power off? I pressed it. The screen went black. The buzzing stopped. The silence in the car was total. I finally managed to get the key in the ignition. The engine turned over. I put the car in drive, and I left my childhood home in my rearview mirror. I kept my phone off for 12 solid hours. The next morning, I had to turn it back on. I had to check work emails. I sat at my small kitchen table, my coffee going cold, and I watched the screen light up. 37 missed calls. 80 new voicemails. 42 text messages. The screaming hadn't worked. I hadn't caved immediately. So, they were switching tactics. Phase 2 of the operation had begun. The logic. My phone rang in my hand. My mother, Brenda. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I answered. I put it on speaker. Alice? Her voice wasn't screaming. It was worse. It was a soft, disappointed, concerned voice. The one she used when I'd failed a test in high school. The one that meant I had let her down. Hi, Mom. Honey, I think we all got a little overheated last night. Your father and we just want to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I'm not signing it. Alice, please, she sighed, a performance of pure exhaustion. Try to be reasonable. You don't need this money. You've always been so good with your savings. You have your job, your apartment, you're fine. There it was. My responsibility, my prudence, my entire life of careful planning wasn't a virtue, it was a liability. It was the very reason I was expected to give everything up, because I was fine. She went on. Leo, he needs this, Alice. He needs a fresh start. This is his one chance. He's had a dozen chances, Mom. I've paid for them. This is different. This is his home. It's my home, too. It's 50% my home. She clicked her tongue. That little sound of disapproval that could make me feel 5 years old. You're being difficult. Just think about it, Alice. Really think about your brother. She hung up. An hour later, my father, Richard, tried. His approach was different. The family unity speech. Alice, your mother's very upset. We're worried about the house. We just want to keep the house in the family. That phrase. In the family? A cold, hard question popped into my head. Dad, I asked, my voice flat, don't I count as part of the family? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It lasted 5 full seconds. 5 seconds of him processing the question. 5 seconds of him realizing he had no right answer. He finally just steamrolled past it. Your brother is in a lot of trouble, and you have the power to fix it. It's that simple. Just be a good sister. He hung up. Be a good sister, not be a respected daughter, not be an equal owner. Then came the text from the golden child himself. Leo, Alice, I'm so sorry. I messed up. I'll pay you back. I swear I will. Every penny. I just need to get these guys off my back. They're serious. Please. Don't do this to me. I'll pay you back. How many times had I heard that? How much money did he already owe me from all the forgotten wallets and tight spots? He wasn't going to pay me back $200,000. He couldn't even pay his own $70,000 debt. Don't do this to me. He was the victim. I was the one doing something to him. By not giving him my house. I put the phone down. My data analyst brain, the brain they'd always dismissed, finally started running the numbers. The demand wasn't just illogical, it was insane. They were asking me to give them $200,000 to fix a $70,000 problem. It wasn't a rescue, It was a theft, a heist. They didn't just want to cover his debt. They wanted to strip me of my entire inheritance, my entire legacy from my grandparents, and hand it over to him. It wasn't about saving Leo from a lien. It was about transferring my wealth to him. My hands were shaking again. I was being selfish. I was tearing the family apart. I was a bad sister. I was not welcome. Was I crazy? Were they right? Shaking, I opened my laptop. I went online, to the one place I could be anonymous. I found the legal advice subreddit. My fingers flew across the keys. I posted everything. The 50/50 will, the $70,000 debt, the $200,000 share, the quitclaim deed, the family meeting, the texts. I hit post, and I waited. I expected the world to tell me I was a monster. The first comment appeared in less than a minute. I read it, and I read it again. Lawyer up now, do not speak to them. They are asking you to give them $200,000 to pay off a gambling debt. This is not a family request. This is financial abuse. Financial abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't family obligation. It wasn't being a good sister. It was abuse. And I was the victim, not Leo. Everything shifted. The fog of guilt evaporated, and all that was left was ice. Financial abuse. That phrase from a stranger on the internet was the key. It unlocked 31 years of rage, and it gave me a plan. I took the next day off work. I didn't call in sick. I took a personal day, a day for me. At 10 a.m., I wasn't at my desk. I was sitting in a quiet, professional office on the 12th floor of a downtown building. The room was all calm neutrals, beige walls, dark wood, the scent of fresh coffee and old law books. It was the complete opposite of my parents' dining room. There were no accusations here, no history, just facts. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s named Miss Hayes, sat opposite me. I had placed the quitclaim deed, the one I'd snatched from their table between us. She'd listened to my entire story for 20 minutes without interrupting. She just nodded, her pen making small, precise notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she pushed her glasses up her nose. She tapped the quitclaim deed with her pen. "Well, Alice," she said, her voice calm and firm. "First, let's be perfectly clear. This document is worthless without your signature. You own 50% of that property. It is your asset. Full stop. Your parents and your brother have zero legal right to it." I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since I was 16. She continued, "What they are doing, ambushing you, threatening you, demanding you sign this to pay off a debt that is not yours, is textbook coercion. It is financial abuse." There it was again. That phrase. Hearing it from a stranger online was validating. Hearing it from a legal professional. In this quiet, safe office. It was like a bone snapping back into place. "You do not," she said, leaning forward, "have to set yourself on fire to pay for your brother's mistakes. A lifetime of guilt. A lifetime of being the brain, the responsible one, the selfish one. It all just evaporated. In that sterile, quiet room, my mind flashed, like a rapid slideshow, through all of it. Me at 16, holding that cheap math prize. My parents buying Leo a radar detector. The endless phone bills. The forgotten wallets. The $70,000 debt. My grandparents' faces. The feeling of finally being seen by them. And then my mother's texts. "He is your brother. You're tearing this family apart. You are not welcome in this house." The rage wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. It was steel. A final, clarifying thought cut through everything. They will never stop. They will bleed me dry for the rest of my life. They will take my salary, my savings, my home, my future. Unless I stop them. They had declared war. They had just underestimated their opponent. I looked Miss Hayes right in the eye. My hands, I noticed, were perfectly steady. "They won't listen to me," I said. "They've never listened to me. I don't want to just defend. I want this to be over. What is the strongest option?" Miss Hayes smiled, just a little. "The strongest option," she said, "is a partition sale." She explained it. A legal action, a court-forced sale of the house. Since we were tenants in common, I had the right to demand my share be liquidated. The court would order the house sold at auction or on the open market. Leo's creditors would be paid from his half, and I would get my half. Clean. Final. It was the nuclear option. It was the only option. She slid a retainer agreement across the desk. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen. The click of it was the loudest sound in the room. Do it, I said. I signed my name. My lawyer immediately began drafting a certified letter. It would be sent to my parents, Richard and Brenda, and to my brother, Leo, by registered mail. It would state, in no uncertain terms: 1. I will not be signing the quitclaim deed. 2. I am formally proposing a voluntary sale of the property, with all proceeds to be split 50/50. And 3. If they refuse to cooperate, I will be filing a motion to force a partition sale. The choice was theirs. They could do this the easy way, or the hard way. But either way, I was getting my money. And I was getting my freedom. The certified letter, delivered by registered mail, landed like a bomb. The legal, official document sent not from Alice but from the law offices of Hayes and Associates was something they couldn't ignore. They couldn't guilt-trip it. They couldn't scream at it. The first person to break, unsurprisingly, was Leo. My phone, which had been quiet for 2 days, suddenly lit up, and it didn't stop. Call from Leo. I watched it ring. I didn't answer. He immediately called back. Call from Leo. I declined it. A text message popped up. Alice, pick up the phone. What is this? Call from Leo. Call from Leo. Call from Leo. He called me 12 times in a row. A frantic, desperate barrage. He was panicking. His human shield me had just walked off the battlefield. His creditors aren't going to wait. The house will be sold. My lawyer will make sure of it. And the karmic justice of it is almost poetic. My father said Leo just needed a fresh start. And he's going to get one. When the house sells, my $200,000 share is mine. His $200,000 share will finally be used to pay his own debts. That $70,000 lien will be satisfied from his money. He'll get to keep the rest. He gets his fresh start, but not one single cent of it will come from me. After Leo's panic attack failed, my parents' reaction was predictable. First, there was a week of pure, shocked, silent treatment. They were stunned. The employee had not just quit. She had filed a lawsuit against the company. Then, when the silence didn't work, when I didn't come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, the love bombing began. A text from my mother, Brenda. The tone was sickeningly sweet. Alice, honey, let's just talk about this. There's no need for lawyers. We're a family. We can work this out. We can work this out. The same words they'd used to fix his speeding ticket. The same words they used to pay off his failed business. I just stared at the text. It was too late. She was right. We're a family. But I was no longer the one working it out for them. The lawyers are talking now, I typed. And for the first time, I hit send. That night, after the letter had been sent, after the panic calls had been ignored, I went back to my own small apartment. I sat on my couch. For the first time in my life, my phone wasn't a threat. It wasn't a ticking time bomb of family obligation, waiting to explode with a new demand, a new crisis, a new bill. I opened my contacts. Brenda, mobile. I hit block this caller. Richard, mobile. I hit block this caller. Leo, mobile, block. The silence in my apartment was total. It was profound. It was peace. A few days later, I had coffee with a good friend from work. She was one of the few people who knew bits and pieces of the story. I told her everything. The meeting. The quitclaim deed. The lawyer. The certified letter. I was still scared, deep down, that she would judge me, that she'd say, "But it's your brother." She just listened. When I finished, she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her eyes were shining. "You finally did it, Alice," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My God. You're free." And she was right. My $200,000 is safe. My future, the one my grandparents wanted for me, is my own. Looking back, letting go of the idea of the family I so desperately wanted, the one where I was loved unconditionally, not transactionally, that was harder than letting go of the toxic, abusive family I actually had. They didn't just ask me for my inheritance. They didn't just ask for $200,000. They asked for my future. They asked for my one, non-negotiable boundary. They asked me to erase myself. And for the first time in my life, I refused to sign. Never set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they're the ones holding the matches, demanding you burn. If you are done being the family scapegoat, if you are ready to choose your own future, subscribe to the channel.